Hello, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on Rumble Live. Thanks Timcast for the raid. Thanks Mug Club for the raid. Remember, we stream every day on Rumble, or at least we will continue to until Armageddon seeps into every corner of our lives. And of course, mostly we're talking about the escalating war, with occasional breaches to discuss gold mobile phones through which we may communicate if we're able to, survive the next couple of weeks. Have you seen those posts on Truth Social that were posted there? Massey, pull them, Isaac, if you could get them up now. If you look at the Clips Rundown chat on WhatsApp, you will see the two recent posts are Donald Trump has posted unconditional surrender. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target. It's safe there. We're going to take him out. We're not going to kill him for now, but we don't missile shot civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thanks for your attention to this matter. So, in a way, there's a war between America and Iran, I guess, now. America are explicitly supporting Israel. Let me know in the comments and chat if you supported that, and let me know where you stand, at least on the conversation that's unfolding online, where, for example, Dave Smith has come out and said he was mistaken to have supported Donald Trump in the first place, and where Tucker Carlson is questioning whether or not Trump is being managed or controlled by extraneous or external forces. Solo19 asks in the chat, is Bongino army still a thing? MAGA isn't divided. Let me see that. Let me see this. MAGA isn't divided. Russell, MAGA isn't divided. We aren't Democrats. We can have a disagreement without breaking, can't we? Yeah, I guess we can. I guess people can. I mean, look, this is how I feel about it. My support for Trump was generally based upon we gotta break up this globalist imperialist threat that's in the form of these Democrats that are clearly aligned with figures like Macron, the loathsome and ludicrous Macron, the outrageous Keir Starmer, God love him, and sets of permanent bureaucracies that are edging the world towards war continually and want us to live in a kind of airport of perpetual control. Trump, I always saw as an incredible bulwark. His individualism, his complete his unwillingness to be managed and controlled. That's kind of how I saw it then. How do you guys see it now? A dispute is one thing, but a global holy war is another thing. One of the sort of, I think, interesting emergent breaks in this, I'd love to see those things, just tell me where they are. 48. Thanks, man. Is Tucker Carlson, I suppose, look, if Donald Trump were to have one potent advocate in the media space, it would be Joe Rogan, wouldn't it? But if it were two, it would be Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. Now, what I think is interesting about this conversation that Tucker's had with Steve Bannon is that he appears to have a lot of affection and respect for Donald Trump. And I suppose anyone who's lived in the public eye, who's seen how Donald Trump has dealt with attacks, anyone who's tried to make money, anyone who's tried to deal with building regulations has got to have some kind of begrudging respect for Trump. Anyone who loathes the legacy media and the political class and the intelligentsia and their ongoing deceptiveness and the way that they divide us from one another and pretend that they care when in fact it's control are going to have a degree of respect for Donald Trump. But here is Tucker Carlson managing his disappointment that the pledge that there would be no more forever wars appears to be breached. Now, do you think the simple fact is this? Anyone talking about campaigning about how they will govern before they're in a position of power is going to make certain missteps? Or do you feel that there's something darker and deeper at play here, in essentially that it don't matter what people say when they're campaigning. When they're in a position of power, true power asserts and war resumes. Let's have a look at Tucker saying that involvement in this conflict will end his presidency. This is a conversation between Tucker and Bannon.
I actually really love Trump. I think he's a deeply humane, kind person. And I am saying this because I'm really afraid that my country's going to be further weakened by this. I think we're going to see the end of American empire, obviously. Other nations would like to see that, and this is a perfect way to scuttle the USS America on the shoals of Iran. But it's also going to end, I believe, Trump's presidency and effectively end it. And so that's why I'm saying this.
What do you mean by that? That's coming from you. That's
you get. Look, I knew Bush. I knew George W. Bush. We had family connections to Bush. I knew Bush. Personally, I still see Bush sometimes. And, of course, he hates me, and he does because I criticized him on Iraq. And that war is the sum total, from a historical perspective, of his administration. But I knew him, and he had all kinds of plans for the things that he wanted to do. But once domestically,
right,
to improve the country.
Right.
And you may agree or disagree, but in his mind, he wasn't just about the invasion of Iraq in March of 2000.
Oh, no. He was going to redo Social Security. He had all types of. He was going to take care of the entitlements issue.
And he really thought it was going to work.
Yep.
And you could laugh at that or whatever, but the point is, the second you get enmeshed in a real war, not a fake, let's go bomb the villagers and declare success, though we don't even have a good track record. Why are the Houthis still there? There's a whole other question,
right,
which is how prepared is the U.S. military for a real conflict? And the answer is totally unprepared. Scary unprepared. I don't think people understand that. But anyway, the only reason I'm saying any of this is because...
Looking at you lot in the chat, a lot of people like Tucker. A lot of people think Tucker's mistaken in this instance. How are you guys responding to these recent posts? That's the one I was reading earlier. Unconditional surrender. That's presumably what Trump demands of Iran. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target. He's safe there. We're not going to take him out. Kill, exclamation mark. At least not for now. But we don't want missile shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I do like that sign off, I have to say. The other post. We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA. Now, Trump is creating an incredible empire, whether it's his commercial enterprises or a sort of new standard of vernacular when directly communicating with a nation that elected him with an extraordinary mandate. I don't know how aware you lot were during the campaign period of secondary voices in peripheral spaces saying that even someone who seems like as much as an outlier as Trump does will ultimately end up being controlled by the permanent sets of power that exist in Washington. Now, look, I've been involved in this game not that long, but long enough to know that everything that I think I know is sort of meaningless, temporary, transient and perishable. But how do you feel, for example, when you see Dan Bongino and Kash Patel prior to entering their positions of authority in the FBI saying, this Epstein matter is something that's going to be deeply revelatory, and then once they're in power saying, look, we've seen the files, this is as much as we can tell you. I'm not claiming who would to be in a position of authority or on any kind of podium from which to judge people that deal with levels of power and authority that it's sort of almost inconceivable, dazzling and baffling. In fact, all I can say here as a kind of wild and mad man on the edge of town, a sort of outcast of this world, of 1,000 worlds now, Hollywood, various institutions, just bewildered by the vicissitudes of power, bewildered and exhausted by what happens if you're outspoken in these places. The things that you'll likely deal with is this. The systems and institutions themselves are the problem. They are conduits for darker forces than any individual or even sets of individuals can counter, particularly because those individuals have their own flaws, their own failings, their own fallibility, whether you're talking about an extraordinary and unique man like Donald Trump, well-intentioned and brilliant people like Bobby Kennedy, or you and I. Indeed, much of my personal ideology is forged from the folk traditions of the 12 steps, where we're fond of saying things like, we're all insane in here, but not on the same day. And what's implicit in that is the idea that no one can carry the burden of leadership alone. That all of us have to recognize that we're on our knees, shoulder to shoulder, before God, saved by the supreme sacrifice of the Son of the living God. Now, if you're not able to reference something like that when you're setting up systems of government, when you're standing on the edge of a war, then I don't know what you're going to rely on. Economics, geopolitical agenda, or historical imperatives, all of those things I think will fail you. But that's just just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. Whatever this is, this ain't what MAGA campaigned on. Whatever this is, it's not what MAGA campaigned on. They didn't say we'll be back in Israel in a likely war with Iran, did they? That wasn't explicit. They didn't say that the Ukraine-Russia conflict will continue. I think there was a lot of rhetoric all around 24 hours, it'll be over. Now, again, I got to consider my personal position as well as everything else, you know, and here it is. Here's my position. Don't follow leaders, watch your parking meters, in the words of Bob Dylan. You can't really rely on institutions and systems of power that are themselves fallible and flawed. Perhaps one might yield to and lean towards the perspective of the eternal. And from the perspective of the eternal, nations rise, nations fall, governments come and go, leaders with great legacies lost on the wind of history. If your inheritors and your legacy will be as numerous as the sand on the beach, then what does that suggest across the scope of time? None of us are that wonderful, glorious. Certainly none of us are permanent, superior or powerful. So I reckon, man, we need to turn to some eternal principles and some eternal values, and maybe even have a little bit of a laugh while we're here. If you're watching this on YouTube, ultimately we're going to need you to click the link in the description. In our what do we call it? Unpacked, we had a look at the British government, who are now doing they're doing an inquiry after saying it would be racist to have an inquiry. So that's pretty extraordinary. Keir Starmer said it would be racist to have an inquiry. We're going to have an inquiry though. And what you'll notice in a more parochial story like that, something that's contained to one island, the UK. You'll notice you've got two islands, I suppose, because part of the UK is Northern Ireland, although that's a whole conversation, is that political figures are much more interested in the preservation of their personal control than even the issue they're claiming to talk about. I.e., when you see political figures talking about the grooming gang inquiry, you can tell they're not thinking about rape gangs and the victims of gang rape. They're thinking about how can we maintain our control and not look hypocritical. Now we're having an inquiry after saying we wouldn't have one. And the only reason they're having that inquiry is because Tommy Robinson was retweeted by Elon Musk. Without that, there would be no grooming gang inquiry. So why aren't they explicitly saying that? That's the first token of trust I would demand of them in this transaction. Look, we're only having this grooming gang inquiry because Tommy Robinson made a documentary and Elon Musk reposted it. We're not for that. We'd have kept this thing repressed. The fact is, power's moving in new and unusual ways now, and our old institutions cannot handle it. We'll be discussing that a little later. You know what I'd love is a sting for Unpacked, and probably whenever we make a Unpacked, we should have a minute of it and then be able to play that in. So I'd go, look, this is the one we made yesterday about Tucker Carlson. Okay, so look, so this is, I suppose, now a bit of a spat between Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump. Here's Trump responding to Tucker's criticism.
In response to Tucker Carlson criticizing you, saying that you're complicit in the war.
I don't know what Tucker Carlson is saying. Let him go get a television network and say it so that people listen.
And quickly,
Thank you.
Have you spoken to Zelensky before your fight?
Oh, okay then. So I suppose that's a sort of a little bit of a rebuke. Here's Candace Owens on the subject. Donald Trump just completely fractured his base, and he did it for the very neocons who minted the Never Trump movement. Truly unbelievable. Okay. Here's Jones on the same subject. Trump attacking Tucker Carlson for not supporting a new world war is not something any sane person would support. And here's Marjorie Taylor Greene backing Tucker Carlson as well. Tucker Carlson's one of my favourite people. He fiercely loves his wife, children and our country. Since being fired by the neocon network Fox News, he has more popularity and views than ever before. He unapologetically believes the same things I do. That if we don't fight for our own country and our own people, then we will no longer have a country for our children and our grandchildren. And foreign wars, intervention, regime change put America last, kill innocent people, and are making us broke and will ultimately lead to our destruction. That's not kooky. It's what millions of people voted for. That is what we believe. Has anyone got an alternative opinion to that? Because I suppose Tucker Carlson, I love him. I know him. And he's, I suppose, really significant in my personal journey. When I first met him, he was still on Fox News, and I was probably just on YouTube. He was super kind to me. I've met his family. I know about his integrity. I've prayed with him. I've spent time with him. I know Tucker Carlson, and I really love him. And he's one of the first people I met, I suppose, that made me realise people on the right are more open and honest than a lot of people I've met on the left. This is a lesson that I've been learning over a long time, primarily in UK media. When I aspired as a little blue-collar Essex boy to be part of the intelligentsia, to make a living out of performing, when I was first in newspapers like The Guardian, I thought, oh, look, I've made it. When I first sort of wrote about football in my country and had a column in The Guardian, I felt really approved of. And then when I met the people that actually worked at those organisations, it was kind of harrowing and awful. There's this sort of snobbery and elitism that's visceral and real. Probably like you, I'm not capable of holding a global conflict in my arms and analysing it. Like, oh, well, it is complex. What would happen if Iran developed nuclear weapons? And what about this revolution and that revolution? And what about Israel this? And what about the Balfour Treaty? I can't understand that. You can't understand it. No one can understand it. What we can probably handle are our visceral and intuitive interactions with one another, that you can look in someone's eyes and go, yeah, I don't trust that person. They're lying. They're only interested in personal power and personal advancement. And guess what? That includes me as well. I'm trying to survive in a world where I'm dealing with a great deal of personal pressure and incredible attacks. Of course, I'm really blessed as well. I'm supported. I've got an amazing family, amazing friends. But man, like you, I'm trying to navigate economic, financial, interpersonal challenges while dealing also with a global holy war. Like, think about it. Like, how different was it? How different is it when you speak to someone that's been personally affected? It's like, oh, I've got friends in Tel Aviv and their house got blown up, or the fact is I know someone in Tehran and their cousin's just been killed. Suddenly you're like, oh shit, man, this thing's real. Or like if you know someone that's been raped by a rape gang in the UK. I mean, the whole thing starts to be untenable. The fact is probably this. The technology that we have now affords us great opportunity for communication and organisation. This communication has to be controlled, and the capacity for organisation has to be curtailed. Otherwise, there are going to be major and significant shifts in the way that power operates globally. We saw it first with Napster. The record industry collapsed and had to reorganise itself radically. Then we saw it in the rise of the Occupy movement, so a political movement that was neither left or right in the traditional sense, but was opposed to financial corruption and financial power in the wake of 2008 rose up. Now, since then, as Dave Smith correctly observed in that instance, if you ask me, there's been the advent of identity politics, which means that people are so busy bickering about like racial distinctions and gender distinctions, they can't become cohesive and present enough to recognise, wait, in general, we have the same interests. You don't want to die. Sometimes, you know, maybe that's a high fucking standard some days. In general, you don't want to die, and you want to be able to take care of the people that are close to you. There's nothing wrong with that. Probably you need to have a portal to the eternal somewhere in your purview. So you have to recognise, i.e., that everyone else doesn't want to die and wants to care about the people that they love. If you don't have a window into that reality because you're so continually bombarded with vitriol and ever-changing news cycle, this is like the last week. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are having an argument. Fucking hell, this is epochal. What's going to happen? How's that going to change, MAGA? There's riots all across California. Oh my God, what's going to happen now? Is this going to be a civil war? We're going to war with Iran. Fucking hell. Like, how are you keeping up with it? How are you doing it? I mean, take a breath, man. I'm struggling to get out of fucking bed and move around. I'm spending a lot of time just lying on my side doing a rosary like I'm in a fucking in a leukemia ward, just to sort of cope with it. No wonder people check out. Maybe checking out to some degree is what we need to do, because in truth and in fact, you are not designed or evolved to cope with this amount of stimuli. There is an aspect of your nature that can cope with eternity, but what you can't cope with is an infernal and internal deluge of cyclical information continually stimulating you to the point of hysteria and madness. No one can deal with it. Not you, not me, not anybody. Without a radical revision of the institutional relationships at a geopolitical level, we're going to be trapped in a perpetual and perennial cycle of constant crisis. We will lurch from 2008 into COVID, 9/11, into Tehran, into Israel. This whole thing's too much for all of us. Start focusing on localized interconnectivity, on localized independence, on collective tribal organization, on the slow, tedious tedious business of running a community, running your own life, running your family, being able to source food, being able to survive, not being so inept that if your phone breaks down, you break down. If your car breaks down, you break down. If you can't continually gain access to Wi-Fi and stream perpetually an endless line of bronzed cleavage and butt clefts, your world falls apart. Man, you better find God. You better find God now, because I'm telling you, the temporary is not going to provide you with a solution. If you're watching us on YouTube or X, join us on Rumble, that have been kind enough to offer us a permanent home here. We're going to leave you on YouTube shortly. Here's a quick word from one of our sponsors. We're obviously talking about Iran and Israel, but we're trying as best we can to find a broader context even than that. Here's a message from one of our partners. Free speech is under attack, Jack, but Rumble refuses to take it lying down. Rumble is farting out the fierce cock of authoritarianism and clamping shut the butt cheeks of free speech, baby. We've always believed in empowering voices, no matter how unpopular, and now we're taking that fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollary dues, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their back, claiming Rumble had a right-wing culture. But we're not here to fit a mold. We're here to defend free expression. How dare you? How dare you? Just look at some of these comments. Keep it going, Russell. Great stuff. That is from Benito Mussolini. Well done, Russell. Magnificent. I loved your take on Israel. And that's from Mr. Goebbels. You know, there is no right-wing culture here on Rumble. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience, except ironically, sometimes I do record the ads on Rumble Premium, but you get a behind-the-scenes glimpse. Give us a glimpse, 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 give us a glimpse. Ooh-wee! A completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits. We're friends, but with benefits. Not benefits like that, Greta Thunberg, if that's your real name.
Greta Thunberg.
Which I doubt. Content from creators like Russell Brand. Yo, I'm that dude. Dr. Disrespect. Are you even a real doctor? Tim Cast. And the Mug Club with Crowder. It's more than a subscription. It's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using the Rumble code BRAND. Now, I do want you to do that because my contract is up for renewal and it would really help me. So go get it right now. Visit rumble.com/premium/brand and claim your discount today. Together we can turn the tide, whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching. Your support helps keep free speech alive. And with free speech, we can be free together. Subscribe to Rumble now. Hey, Dor Smith in the Rumble chat. I just got Rumble Premium yesterday. Thank you for getting Rumble Premium. Look at all my beloved friends over there on locals like Jude Syke and Sensitive Hearts 25 and Thomas Beard. All right, all of you. I love you guys. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for being with us on this mad and giddy voyage as human beings, somehow trying to occupy the temporal and stay connected to the eternal. Remember, we make Russell Brand Unpacked. We used to call that hero videos. That's where we record it offline so I can concentrate a bit more. And if I make a mistake or say something I regret, and go back, cut it out, make it a little bit better. You know, so much going on these days. If you're going to tell the truth, you're going to get attacked. Like this sweet little tattoo on my arm, which is a quote from Oscar Wilde. He said, "If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they will kill you." One of the things that I reckon I found pretty hard lately is staying true to the muse of comedy, the great muse of comedy. Remembering that things are actually very funny. Reality's funny. It's funny that we take ourselves seriously. It's funny that we come down here, this is what I believe, this is what I think. Yeah, well, guess what? You're going to die. Your ass is full of farts. You masturbate. You lay in bed and you masturbate and you glaze your own little tum-tum and you have to lay there in a cocoon of your inner belly, squirming under yourself, and then you dare to come out into the world. Everyone in the world who, with their great opinions and declarations, sit picking their nose on the toilet, falling apart and decaying. Let's stop taking ourselves so fucking seriously. And what happened to Oscar Wilde? Banged up for bumming, no less. For bumming. Reading jail, 4 years, off to Paris. Near suicide. Guys, we can't take ourselves seriously, can we? Because what do we know about Netanyahu and what he's up to next? Okay, so listen, like we've talked a little bit about Tucker Carlson. We've got so much stuff today. If you're a member of our Rumble Premium community, we'll do a little bit extra. We've got a conversation coming up with Terence Howard as well. We're having guests on here. If there's guests you think we should have and that you reckon we could get, let us know about that, because we'll try and get them. We'll try and get them on the show. We've got a nice little guest book, and not little, he's a lovely guy, Tony. He's getting our guests for us. Let us know if you want any guests. Wankers, says Ficus 1848. That's most people, not me though. Russell tattooed cheat notes on his arm for his English final. Now, Oscar Wilde, man, yeah, sometimes they teach you picture of Dorian Gray in British schools, but Oscar Wilde's a complex figure, tall poppy syndrome, little too elegant, little too mouthy for his own good, and also it turned out in Victorian or late Victorian Britain, a little too gay. Those things didn't go down well, unlike many of the rent boys dear Oscar slept with. Now, here over on Rumble, on Locals, me, love, light and fuck the system. Yeah, love, light, fuck the system. That's where we got to get to. If you can have a uni-party in power, surely you can have a uni-party as opposition. Surely this is the time for us to reach out and say, look, guys, maybe these institutions of war, these permanent bureaucracies are going to take a little more opposing than just a few people online with consternation and furrowed brows and a bit of fist pumping and a bit of fist bumping. What are the Democrats offering us? Gavin Newsom? AOC? Is that the answer? Let us know if you think the Democrats have got any serious opposition to this thing. Did you see Gavin Newsom saying that even his nickname from Trump, he says, that's not original, I used to get called that at school. Here he is.
I learned about it when I saw some tweet about Governor Newscomb, a nickname, by the way, that's hardly original. There was an 8th grader on Baltimore Street in Corte Madera that used to call me that.
Yeah, he's trying to say, well, I'm not bothered because I've been called scum all of my life. And what I'm hearing is, you was always scum, Gavin Newsom. Listen, that doesn't even hurt my feelings. I'm bothered. I was called that at school. Listen, if you're watching us on YouTube, click the link in the description. Get on over and join us on Rumble. We've got a lot to talk about, you know, global holy war and how we're going to manage that as little individuals, poor little souls, little darling ants lost in eternity that we are. We'll be talking about the Brit rape gang inquiry. We'll be talking about sort of, is this the breakup of MAGA? Certainly Matt Walsh thinks so. How can Trump completely destroy his legacy in 2 easy steps? Gets involved in the Middle East, give amnesty to illegals on behalf of the hotel industry and big agriculture. It seems that the alliance of MAGA is, to some degree, quaking. Here's Liam McCullum, someone posted an X, I don't know much about him. I didn't think he could do it, but at this pace, Donald Trump is going to lose Elon Musk or